Yo, what is going on everybody? Today I wanted to show off this insane Sharen build for electric bounties. Before I get into this video, I wanted to say that this build was founded by Plain. I'll have their video in the description down below. With that being said, let's get right into the video. So starting off with Sharen's build, we are going to be using Focused Edge, we're going to be using Skill Expansion for range, MP Conversion, Nimble Fingers for cooldown, Focus on Electric, and Focus on Fusion for skill power boost and also cooldown, Emergency Measures for critical hit rate and critical hit damage, Dangerous Ambush because whenever you go invisible you're going to get an increase of skill power boost, Skill Concentration for skill critical hit damage, Electric Integration for electric skill power boost ratio and skill critical hit damage, and then finishing off with your Ancestor mod. Now for the Ancestor mod, you are going to want to try to get a fusion skill power boost ratio as high as possible and a skill critical hit damage. These are going to be your double positives. We're going to be going for a double positive and one negative Ancestor module. Your best harmless negatives for your Ancestor mod is going to be Dimension skill power boost ratio, Dimension skill power boost modifier, Fusion skill power boost modifier, max shields, and you should be good to go with those negative stats. I know these Ancestor modules can be a pain in the ass to farm or to get the best stats possible, so I also do have another build as well that does not have an Ancestor mod. So with the build for no Ancestor module, we are keeping everything the same, but instead we're going to switch out Electric Integration with Electric Synthium, and then we're going to switch out our Ancestor module with Frontlines. Honestly, this build is pretty damn good. When using this build, I was actually only clearing like 1 to 2 minutes slower, which is honestly very insane that you could still like clear this fast without an Ancestor module. I will be showcasing this build at the end of the video. I'm also going to be giving a couple thoughts about bounties, but anyways, let's continue on with the video. Now going over the Reactor and external components. For the Reactor, we are going to be using a Electric Fusion Reactor with the substats cooldown and the faction damage of Order of Truth. Now you can replace the faction damage with critical hit damage if you choose so. Both will work perfectly fine. I personally just go with Order of Truth because faction damage seems to do a lot of damage. And then for the external components, we are going to be going with the full Slayer set. For the substats, I will have them in the description down below for the best substats for the external components. Now for the weapons, we are going to be going with the Blue Beetle. For the Blue Beetle, we do not care about the build at all. Just make sure that you do have 2 sprint speeds on your gun so then you can move faster. The reason why we're going to be using the Blue Beetle is the critical hit rate that we're going to be getting when using our fusion skills, which is going to be our 1st and 4th ability. And then for our second weapon, we're going to be using the Voltia. Honestly, you can use any weapon here, but I personally am just going to be using the Voltia for this. This is going to be used to break the immunity bubble that the boss will cast. Now with the Voltia build, we are going to be focusing on firearm attack with rifling reinforcement and action and reaction. Oh, I can never say that. Also, we're going to be focusing on multi-hit with multi-precision sight, and then make sure that you actually do use multi-trigger or piercing trigger so that we do not lose the chance of critting. And the reason why we want to crit is because of spray and pray. This is going to allow us to not consume rounds whenever we have a critical hit rate on our weapon, or whenever we hit a crit. And then for element, we want to go for electric. That seems to break the bubble the fastest, and then weak point damage again to break the bubble faster. For your weapon cores, make sure that you are using a rounds per magazine. Make sure you have 2 of these because we want as many rounds as possible. And then for your element, make sure that it's electric attack, firearm attack, and then additional damage to either Legion of Order. I just have it at Legion of Darkness because of Onslaught. This is going to be the Arche Tuning we're going to use for this build. For the top node, we're going to want to go for Electric Chain Catalyst for the electric strip, and then for the bottom node, we're going to go with Arche Efficiency Enhancement. We're going to be using this so that we can stack up the skill power boost ratio or base skill power boost ratio. We stack this with our first ability whenever we're attacking the boss, so make sure that you are stacking this before you actually use your 4th ability. For the Inversion reinforcement perks, we are going to be using Combat Adaptation, Deploy Hardened Shell, and Selective Cellular Stimulation. This is just going to give you the max amount of survivability. If you feel like you're having mana issues during the runs, you can swap out Selective Cellular Stimulation with Selective Neural Stimulation. Personally, I do like the survivability with these 3 perks since the boss does a lot of damage, and if you're not careful, you can die pretty easy. But if you do feel like you can handle your own, then by all means, go for the mana. Now for the fellow, we are going to be bringing the Hagios dog. I personally like the Hagios dog for the survivability. Every 30 seconds you will be healed by this dog, and it's going to heal up to 25% of your HP. You can most definitely go for the mana dog, but I highly recommend that you choose the Hagios dog because the boss can do a lot of damage to you, especially since we're not running any HP modules in this build, but I'll get into that reasoning momentarily. Now really quickly, I did want to talk about explosive aesthetic, because I know a lot of people are probably going to ask me why not use this over Power Beyond, and honestly the playstyle of explosive aesthetic only really works with your first ability. Yes, you can use both your first ability and your fourth ability to do massive damage, but that's the thing, massive damage with your first ability, it's not really that massive, to be honest. It could be because of my trigger module, but I just don't think that's the case. I just feel like this playstyle is really slow compared to just building up your stacks with your fourth ability. If you want to, you can, but again, you probably will go a lot slower since you have to build up stacks. But that is up to you. I just wanted to show you guys this real quick. So now I'm going to be talking about the gameplay and how you're going to play this build exactly. So let's get into it. Strap your boots in because you're going to want to really listen to this. So the first thing you're going to want to do before engaging any fight is using your third ability. This is going to mark the enemies with a debuff that is going to allow you to do an explosion, or kind of an electrical explosion, right, with your first ability. Your first ability is going to trigger that explosion. Once you've triggered that explosion, then you're going to do massive amount of AoE damage, but also the first ability is going to actually tie in with your fourth ability. Now with your first ability, you're going to actually build up these stacks every time you hit an enemy with your first ability, and this is going to stack up 20 times. Once you've stacked up 20 times, you're going to be able to do a massive amount of damage with your fourth ability, and this is going to be a lot of damage. But before you actually use your fourth ability or even your first ability, it is really important to make sure that you're going invisible every time it's off cooldown. This is going to give you an increase of skill power boost and skill critical hit rate. So again, whenever you're using your fourth ability, make sure that you go invisible first so you can increase your overall damage. A little recap: use your third ability, debuff. Use your first ability to build stacks. Use your second ability to get a damage buff, and then use your fourth ability to dish out a shit ton of damage. Again, make sure that you're building up to 20 stacks. It should look something like this. And yeah, that's going to be pretty much it. If you made it this far into the video, you did it. You've gotten everything you need to know about Sharen and how to do electric bounties. If you want to, you can leave off the video here, but I kind of just wanted to talk about bounties and just give my opinion on them and what I think about them, doing the broken record thing again. Anyways, yeah, honestly, this is probably the best iteration for SCU farming in the game. Before, it was breach tracking, and honestly, let's be real, breach tracking was just 400% like just reskinned 400%. They were really boring. I personally didn't like them too much. I know it did introduce the open maps and just like a different variety of environment, but I don't know. I do prefer this way more. It does feel a lot more challenging, and you get way more SCU. It's way more rewarding. The only thing that I have a problem with this bounty, or at least the bounty system, is that it is tied to Onslaught. Now, to be fair, obviously it's going to be tied to Onslaught. They work hand in hand with each other. You got to get the Vulgus chips, and then you come here. That is not the issue I have. The biggest issue I have is just the freaking Vulgus drop rates and having to run Onslaught so many times. Now, to be fair, if they made it a lot easier to get these Vulgus chips, I can understand this being really OP, and they've already buffed it already, so I can't complain too much on the matter. I mean, I really can't. And to be honest, the rewards are very lucrative. You get a shit ton of SCU, which you can also get jackpots up to, I think, 1,000 SCU, which is honestly insane. Not only are you farming SCU here, you're also getting Ancestor modules. I am so glad that they made this a kind of like a system where you can choose what descendants you want to, you know, farm for. Now, I will say it does suck that it is element based and you can't just have like an all-in-one, but now that I'm thinking about it and saying that out loud, that would probably be horrendous if all the descendants were in one bounty. You'd probably never get the Ancestor mod that you want, now that I think about it. But yeah, honestly, this is such a great mode. I have a lot of fun with it, and I mean, yeah, there's nothing really else I could say other than they did a pretty good job with this mode. I hope Onslaught gets a little bit better. There is kind of like an issue going on with Onslaught with the levers, but I'm not even gonna lie, I'm guilty too of this. I leave a lot as well, just because the matchmaking in Onslaught is kind of just random. Like, I've had instances where I would go in as a support Luna, and then it would pair me with like 3 Eugens, and it's like, well, yeah, we're gonna, obviously we have to leave. There's no way we're gonna be able to do this. We have 4 supports. I don't know. I think they should add a role system, or give a system to where it will detect what type of playstyle you have, or what type of playstyle you're using, so that it would pair you with other descendants like DPSs and stuff like that. But other than that, that's all I gotta say. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Peace.